The Wall Street Journal is out with a devastating report on the current state of the war in Afghanistan. Taliban broaden their reach in villages across Afghanistan. Insurgents consolidate power by administering schools and electricity, making dislodging them harder for government and coalition forces. Okay, so this is also an issue in Syria, except in Syria it's not with the Taliban, of course, it's with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and various jihadist groups. And what they did is, a few years back, they would kick the Syrian government, they beat back the Syrian government out of certain places, and then they would set up infrastructure and civil society, if you will, in the sense that they'd have schools going. The Taliban is now releasing in Afghanistan 30-minute propaganda videos that show kids playing soccer and, people having fun and laughing. And what they do is they kick out the government and then they portray themselves as like, well, what do you mean? We're just regular people with a regular society here doing our thing. Ignore the fact that we, behead people if they're caught smoking cigarettes or whatever the case is. That was the case with ISIS. To be fair, I'm not sure if that's the case with the Taliban, although I wouldn't be surprised. So they highlight the good things, don't show the negative things, release the propaganda videos, and people say, hey, look, in order to survive, you got to go along to get along, son. So the Taliban takes over, is resurgent, and basically there's nothing that the government troops can do. Now, to show you how bad it is, take a look at this. The red on this map, so all the different, variations of red on this map, that's Taliban controlled or Taliban influenced, or where they're starting to get a foothold. That's incredible. This is what we have to show for our 16-year-long war there. They might hold more territory than ever before. Okay, now let me give you some more information. More local Taliban groups are now functioning as governing entities, administering services for which the state pays, such as education and electricity, and collecting their own taxes from farmers, and sometimes protection money from businesses, like the mafia. The growing influence is helping them generate revenue for recruits and spread distrust in Afghanistan's shaky government. The Taliban wielded significant control over 8.4 million Afghans, almost a third of the population at the end of 2016, up from 5 million a year earlier, according to a confidential United Nations report reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. The report showed that the territory over which the insurgents have significant influence or control increased from 30% to 40% of the country over the same period. The Trump administration is expected to approve a U.S. military request for more troops for Afghanistan, coalition officials said, and Pentagon officials said they expected to make a recommendation to the White House as soon as this week. But with 8,400 troops on the ground now, down from a high of 100,000 in 2011, even a somewhat fortified coalition would likely struggle to reverse the Taliban's territorial gains. Wow. Now, on top of that, we covered stories a while back that this is presented as like, well, government troops good, Taliban bad. There's no question the Taliban is bad, don't get me wrong. But the government forces are not good because we allied not just with government forces, but with non-Taliban warlords in Afghanistan. And these warlords were deeply corrupt. Some of them would capture children and keep them as sex slaves. Again, I'm not kidding about this. There was a U.S. soldier who was dismissed and dishonorably discharged because one of the U.S. allies had a child chained to his bed, and he blew the whistle on that. And then that guy was dishonorably discharged. So in other words, the U.S. government said, no, pedophile warlords in Afghanistan are good. Our soldiers who are concerned about the human rights of the kid who was captured and was a sex slave, bad. So this is a point that I've been making for a long time now, and unfortunately, I don't hear very many other people making the point, which is, even with us there, the Taliban's already controlling 40% of Afghanistan. And when the U.S. pulls out, you're going to have them control even more territory. They're going to be even more resurgent. So the question isn't, hey, if we stay there, everything will be okay, or we leave and everything goes to shit. The question is, we're going to stay there and everything's going to be shit, and when we leave, it's going to be shit also. So do you want to rip off the Band-Aid now, or do you want to rip it off later? That's the question. And furthermore, what is victory? Because there wasn't even, the original reason we went in there wasn't even the Taliban. We accepted to an extent, okay, there's a lot of shitty fucking groups and terrorists and leaders around the world. It's not our responsibility to go in there and get rid of everybody. That's crazy. The whole reason to go into Afghanistan, back when we did, is that Afghanistan was housing Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, who was responsible for 9/11. So it was pitched to us, we got to go get Osama bin Laden, and then we're good. Well, guess what? Mission accomplished, bitch. What the fuck are you waiting for? Not only did you get Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda's decimated in Afghanistan, but then they just move the goalposts. They go, oh, did we say that? Well, what we really mean is that we want the Taliban too. But that's not what you originally said. You didn't say that. You said we got to go get the Al-Qaeda and we got to go get Osama bin Laden. Mission accomplished. Yeah, but now we did bait and switch and we want to stay there because of the Taliban. Or maybe it's got nothing to do with any of that. Maybe it's got a lot more to do with the tremendous mineral wealth in Afghanistan, and it's got more to do with the opium crop in Afghanistan. And when you talk about Iraq, it's got something to do with the oil in Iraq. It has something to do with U.S. imperialism, and we don't want to create a power vacuum, and we're the one world superpower, and we don't want to give an inch to, Russia or anybody else, China. So our motives are not pure, and the outcomes are disastrous here. For what? Why are we still there? I mean, I just told you, but why? Why should we be there? We already have, as we're there, 40% of Afghanistan is controlled by the Taliban. Is that victory? Is that what that is? And furthermore, we're so concerned. The reason why we have to fight the Taliban because they're going to do Sharia and we care about human rights. Anyway, Saudi Arabia, we're going to put you on the UN Human Rights Council. Isn't that great? Taliban bad because Sharia. Saudi Arabia has Sharia and they're good. And not only are they good, they're on the the UN Human Rights Council and Women's Rights Council. You know, I smell some hypocrisy. I smell some bullshit. It's almost as if we don't give a fuck about human rights. Huh? Did you know Brunei is another country? They just implemented Sharia law in 2014. Guess what? In 2015, we invited them into the TPP. We have to fight a war against the people who do Sharia. Oh, Brunei just implemented it? Anyway, let's reward them and give them money and let them in our trade deal. Wouldn't that be great? Man, I don't even think people understand just how ridiculous our foreign policy is and just how much people are getting screwed. And I haven't even brought up the money angle. We spent trillions in Afghanistan. Trillions. For what? We got Flint, Michigan right now. They don't even have clean water. Our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. We're supposed to be the best country in the world. Our infrastructure gets a D+. We have millions and millions of people who don't have health care. And we're going to spend trillions of dollars in Afghanistan. So the government wants you to believe we should rebuild Kabul, but we shouldn't rebuild Michigan. Oh, get the fuck out of here. We've wasted trillions. So many U.S. soldiers have died. So many civilians in Afghanistan have died. All for, there's no end, there's no goal, there's no purpose. I don't even bother to give one anymore. If we stay, 40% of Afghanistan has Taliban control. If we leave, it'll probably be more. But it's none of our fucking business. Let's get out, man. We've wasted enough time. We've wasted enough money. We've wasted enough lives. I haven't even brought up Iraq. $7 trillion war there when all is said and done. Again, and they're going to tell us we can't afford free college. We can't afford free healthcare. We can't have paid vacation time by law like every other modern nation. It's just a sick joke, dude. That's all it is. And now you have Donald Trump, who said half the time on the campaign trail, he was Rand Paul. He was Bernie Sanders on foreign policy. So we got to get out. It's sad. You know, why are we rebuilding over there? We don't even build here. We got to do an infrastructure bill here. No more stupid wars. Since he got in there, total 180. To be fair, half the time on the campaign trail he was non-interventionist. The other half the time he said he wanted to bomb the shit out of them, talking about ISIS, and said we should take out the families of ISIS. So he was half super hawkish, half non-interventionist. But since he went in there, all the non-interventionist stuff is gone. You want to know why? Because he's listening to the establishment. He's listening to the neocons. Whoever has his ear, he'll change his mind based on whoever the fuck is talking in his ear and whoever he's trying to please. Right now he's trying to please the deep state. Right now he's trying to please the neocons who run the government. And they say, why don't you bomb the Syrian government? Boom, he bombed the Syrian government. Why don't you increase drone strikes? Boom, he increased drone strikes. Why don't you, get more involved? Get rid of the rules of engagement in Somalia. Gets rid of the rules of engagement in Somalia. The list goes on and on. Everywhere now, it's just an increase. Everywhere, he's saying, yeah, let's escalate. End the wars, end the empire, take that money, rebuild our home, our country. Did you know we have 800 military bases around the world? And it costs $100 billion a year just to maintain those bases. You're telling me we couldn't, let's just throw this out there, cut it from 800 military bases around the world to 400 military bases around the world, and instead of spending $100 billion a year, spend $50 billion a year. That's not possible, and we can't take that $50 billion and put it towards more important stuff. I'm just throwing it out there. This is a sick joke, man. We all know it's a sick joke. Our government doesn't represent us. By the way, just so we're clear, the only people in the country that are in favor of continuing the war in Afghanistan is the establishment. It's the neocons. What percentage of the American people supported it? I'm going back to a poll from 2013 here. It's probably even lower now. 17% of the American people support the war in Afghanistan as of 2013. It's the most unpopular war in U.S. history. It's even more unpopular than Vietnam. And we're still there. And they're so disconnected from our wants and our needs. Go to justicedemocrats.com. We have candidates who are unapologetic in wanting to get out of the wars. Unapologetic on that front. So we got to fight back because this is obscene. We're an empire just like every other empire. You know, isn't it crazy? Like every empire in history, we could look back and be objective and say, yeah, they might have pretended, hey, we're doing this for everybody else and because we care about people and human rights. But you look back in history, you go, no, they're all just fucking conquerors. They're imperialists, they're conquerors. They wanted more power, more control, more territory, more, more business for themselves. So we can look back and be objective about it. But now somehow today, people think like, no, it's cool. Like, no, we really nailed it. We really care about human rights and altruism and the world police. And that's what no, we're just like every other empire. Just don't fucking kid yourself. That's the reality of it.